Houston, we have a problem. Probably the most famous words ever uttered in the history of space travel. One single sentence, 5 small words, but they signal what could have been the greatest disaster in the history of NASA.
Clock start, flight.
Okay, final has it look.
Looks good here, flight. Good agreement.
You see, it was April the 13th, 1970. Astronauts Jim Lovell, John Swigert, and Fred Hayes, well, they were in the lunar module Apollo 13.
This is the crew of Apollo 13. Wishing everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius and get back for a pleasant evening at Odyssey. Good night.
They were 200,000 miles from Earth, 5/6 of the way to the moon, 55 hours into their flight when disaster struck. A mysterious explosion rocked the ship and left it less than 2 hours from becoming a permanent tomb in space. The crew watched in horror as the cockpit grew darker, the air grew thinner, and instruments went blank. Then, Captain Jim Lovell got on the radio and uttered those famous words.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Yet, these words marked what would become in the annals of American space travel their finest hour. If you think about it, life is kind of like Apollo 13. You're cruising along in that cozy little spaceship of your life, enjoying the scenery, except you're not looking at the moon and the stars and the galaxies, but you're watching your boy play t-ball, your beautiful wife napping on the couch. You're out enjoying a great game of golf when all of a sudden there's an explosion in your life. Your spouse walks in and says, "Houston, we have a problem. I don't love you anymore." Or the principal from your kid's school calls and says, "Houston, we have a problem. Your son is on drugs." Or the doctor looks you in the eyes and says, "Houston, we have a problem. There's something on that x-ray that just doesn't look good." All of a sudden, the walls of your life can crumble right before your very eyes. I'd like, on today's program, to go to the book of Nehemiah. Make it the focus of our study today. Why? Well, because whether you're a corporate executive, a school teacher, an office manager, a consultant, a systems analyst, or just a stay-at-home mom, there's a lot we can learn from Nehemiah. Nehemiah is an expert wall rebuilder, probably the best one in all of the Bible. And many years before his book was written, Jerusalem had been destroyed. The Jews had been deported to Babylon, and later they were allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. For some 90 years, Jerusalem itself had sat in ruins. The city walls had been destroyed, the gates had been burned, and the people, well, they were totally demoralized. And everyone is running around saying, "Houston, we have a problem." But no one was saying, "I've got the solution." That is until Nehemiah steps in. In his book, it's his personal spiritual journal. It's a first-hand account of a wall builder on how to rebuild broken down walls. Do you have any walls broken down in your life? You see, maybe the walls of your marriage are broken down. Maybe the walls of your family are broken down. You see, Nehemiah is the expert in rebuilding broken down walls. And rebuilding, well, that can be many times more difficult than building from scratch. After all, I hear more and more people saying today that it's easier to walk away from a broken marriage than it is to stay and try to rebuild it. In the very first chapter of his book, Nehemiah, lays the foundation of how to begin to rebuild broken down walls. He begins the process that will help us not only on how to face problems and fight obstacles, but how to find solutions to those problems. So, I want to share with you 4 steps, beginning, brick by brick as to how to rebuild broken walls. And step number 1, see the reality of the situation. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. There we read, "The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in Susa, the palace in Hanani, one of my relatives and some men of Judah arrived. So I asked them concerning the returning Jews who had been in captivity and concerning Jerusalem. They said to me, the remnant that returned from captivity is there in the province, enduring great affliction and reproach. Also,